Hi, and welcome to our next level 1 tables, equations and graphs video. This is our next video on linear functions, and we're going to introduce the rule y is equal to mx plus c. Now, the vast majority of straight line graphs can be written in the form of y is equal to mx plus c, m times x plus c. M is a number. M is a number called the gradient, and we've talked about gradient over a few videos. The gradient is a number that represents how steep the line is. We have negative gradients, zero gradients, positive gradients, and even undefined gradients, which are vertical. So that's the number called M. C is a number that is called the y-intercept. The y-intercept is where the graph crosses over the y-axis. Right, well, let's get into example 1 and show you how we could draw a straight line graph with the rule y equal to 2x minus 4. Now, we could set up a table like we've shown you in previous videos. Set up a table, work out the x and the y values, and plot some points. We're going to go straight into a technique where you don't have to do a table if you don't want to or don't need to. Let's start off by looking at the rule and looking at the y-intercept, the number called c. In this example, it's negative 4. Now that tells us where we cross over the y-axis. So on the y-axis, I'm going to put a point at negative 4 because I know the graph crosses over at this point. Let's turn our attention to the number called m. M is the gradient. Gradient is equal to the rise over the run. And since the gradient is a whole number 2, we need to write it as a fraction. To do that, we write it over 1. So 2 can be written as 2 over 1. Now that tells me from the y-intercept point at negative 4, we're going to rise up 2 squares and run across 1 square. We're going to rise up another 2 squares and run across 1. We're going to keep rising up 2 and across 1, up 2 and across 1 as far as we can go. Now we can just draw in our straight line graph through these points. So that's what the graph of y equal to 2x subtract 4 would look like. All right, let's move on to example 2. Use the rule y is equal to negative 2 over 5 times x plus 2. Now we're going to draw a straight line graph. So once again, let's start with the value of c, the y-intercept. It's a positive 2, so that means on the y-axis, the graph crosses over the y-axis at positive 2. Let's turn our attention to the gradient, negative 2 over 5. We know the gradient is rise over run, so it rises up negative 2 and runs across 5. Now the negative means it's actually going downhill. It's going to be a negative gradient. So from the y-intercept at positive 2, what we need to do is we need to rise down 2 squares and run across 5. Rise down 2 squares, and run across 5. And now we can draw in our straight line graph through these points. So that's what the graph of y equal to negative 2 over 5x plus 2 would look like. Right, here's example 3, a little tricky one to finish with. Use the rule y equal to 3 subtract 2x to draw a straight line graph. Now, a lot of people straight away think this is this value of c. It's not. This is the value that's been times by the x, which is the value of m. We've just written them around a different way in this example. This is the value of c, 3, positive 3. So starting with the number by itself is c. So starting with 3, let's put a 3 on the y-axis. Positive 3 is where the graph crosses over the y-axis. Let's now come back to the value of m, the gradient. We know gradient is rise over run. Because it's a whole number, negative 2 has to be written over 1. And we need to rise down 2 squares and across 1, down 2 and across 1, down 2 and across 1. And now we can draw in our straight line graph from here. This is what the graph of y equal to 3 subtract 2x would look like. Awesome. Thanks so much for watching in.